Dusty, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm very excited to have you on today. I know we're here to talk about an upcoming conference or to tease the conference itself, but you've been a person who's worked in the front lines of strategy and tech and real estate for a long bit of time. And there's a lot happening in the world of technology. So I'm wondering from your perspective, what's the biggest shift that you're seeing right now? And what do you think people are underestimating about the transformation that is about to happen or is happening?
I think that's a great question. And I actually think every person, not just in real estate, is thinking this question, right? Where it's a topic of discussion in every meeting. Personally, I think the biggest thing is, everybody is talking about AI, and AI is going to be a part of our journey. We all know that, right? But I think where people probably are going to struggle the most and where everybody really has to take a lot of action is our data. You can build these agents and you can do a lot with them, but if you do not have the data either accessible, you don't have your cleansed data. It's so important, and so that kind of comes back to your own house, right? And so I think there's going to be so much power, but I think the people that are going to win the race are really going to be the ones that build their curated data sets that are, and that's how they'll differentiate themselves, right? It'll be their data plus, right, whatever external data and things that they have to get. There's going to be a lot of power to that because that's how these the AI models and agents work. So it's going to be exciting. I think there's a lot of other things, efficiencies that these agents, and there's a lot of automation, but I think that is the biggest that everybody needs to be preparing for, or they're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, I think you're 100% true. And it's interesting to me, and I'm sure you've heard this in the last 4 to 5 years, it was all about big data. And it was leading up to a moment in time, and maybe that moment in time didn't expose itself until like 3 years ago, plus minus, when OpenAI made its way into the vocabulary. But do you think that there are potential opportunities that are hiding in plain sight as a result of this, where people might not necessarily see the opportunity, but it's just right there, ready to be taken advantage of?
You're spot on. Huh. It's really interesting. There's so much low hanging fruit when it comes to technology. I always tell everybody the technology is the easy part. It really is. It's the people and it's the process that are so hard. And if you don't get that people and process right, technology is not going to work for you. And so I think if we just talk as simple as, efficiency play of automation, there is so much black and white kind of manual automated processes in our accounting orgs, which we all know this, right? In our finance orgs, but even I can attribute it to Trammell Crow. I'm amazed at the amount of manual work that we do, just for not just in our deal teams and our underwriting, but in our development manager space. So the amount of manual work we're having to look at for contracts, for insurance, risk, look at sites, and I mean QA, all these things you think about, there's I would say at a minimum, you could go into each one of those processes and say, we could automate this probably very quickly. But then it goes back to people, process. And it's also, probably to jump ahead a little bit, but it's also the scariest part for some of our people too, because it's a lot of change going on. And what they don't probably realize is, and I always like to use this term, we don't need to worry about, like, sometimes we need to get out of making the sausage and get to really being able to, lack of a better terms, exploit what we're doing and be able to have time to really look at it and look at signals or look at things in a way more strategic way. I think we spend probably 90% of the time making the sausage and 10% of really analyzing. And so that was probably a more longer answer to your question, but that there's like power behind, if everybody just takes a step back and looks at their processes and really says, we're going to focus on the people and process, and we're just going to look at that low hanging fruit, and they probably would make headway.
I think you're so right. I heard somebody, I won't be able to cite their name, somebody talked about that very same concept, the people process technology, and they made a trite remark. I won't be able to quote it exactly, but it was something along the lines of, you put technology on top of bad process and you just create even worse outcomes, or something of that nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, something of that. So I am interested if you're thinking about customer experience, and you could think about customers internally, your team members, or you could think about customers externally. Where do you think technology might make up for some shortfalls that we have today?
Yeah. Um, and I appreciate you said internal too, because I think, we have, especially at Seabury and Trammell Crow, we have internal and external. And I think from an internal customer, I think the biggest shortfalls, and I'll kind of talk from the owner developer world. If you think about underwriting, like at the asset level underwriting it's been an Excel and manual for decades. And it was, interestingly enough, 4 years ago when I decided to take this role with Trammell Crow. And I've been with Seabury. I started my career with Trammell Crow 23 years ago, and then been with Seabury through the acquisition. So I've been in like a lot of different roles. So I've seen it all. But 4 years ago when I took this role, I was shocked that we're still in Excel for such a huge part of our business. And I thought, we surely can automate. And when everybody heard that, they were like, they probably thought, who in the world are you? Like, you're not going to make it, right? And then so I was on this mission. So I started talking to, a lot of our different companies in the same industry and some of our investment companies. And the common theme was, Dusty, don't go down that route. Like, you're barking up the wrong tree. We cannot automate underwriting. And I think that's just one example that we're seeing. It's such a manual, and it's one of the biggest amount of time we spend, that now we're seeing huge strides. We're not there yet. But you're seeing huge strides of snippets of AI automation. We can start bringing in data into those models, or using Python, or you can start seeing that all that, this deal maker might go to 30 different websites to get data to figure out what's the market rents. What should I be looking at for rent growth? What should I be looking at from rates? What should I be looking at for debt? All the stuff they've put. I firmly believe that we are on the cusp of fully being able to automate that, and within a couple of years, and no longer where banks and lenders have been able to have automated underwriting for a long time and use their data. I think we will be able to do the same. But today, that's been very, very manual and hard. And I think that also will then impact our external customers. So if you think about our investor partners, or if you think of, it's going to be a lot more collaborative, a lot more real time. And then you think about, once we go vertical, that whole process, I kind of look at it as like they might have finally like a real world portal of their, I'd say maybe a little bit of the digital twin as it's being built, but it's all going to be a little bit more at their fingertips, where today it's all very manual. They pick up a phone, they're calling, they have, so you're seeing a lot of that, and I could go on and on internally. I also think where you're going to see some big wins, and kind of where we have some pitfalls or kind of opportunities, is in lots of areas on the external. If you think about customer experience there's a lot, just think about customer support, right? So if you think about customer support, or you think I'm a tenant in a building, we're already seeing that right now, right? We're seeing the IoT sensors. It's helping us be more informed. I can go see now, at a snap, maybe on a dashboard, a snap of my fingers, what the temperature is, like what the light settings are. It's all gotten way more automated. I think we'll continue to see that, but I think it'll even be, I personally think part of what's we need to make sure is that where a human person needs to be involved in a high touch area, we still have the human person, but all that very manual, I just need quick information and insights. It's automated. So I'm not frustrated that I have to wait maybe 20 minutes on a phone. So I think we've been seeing that over the last couple of years. I think it's just going to continue to get more and more of that level one support. And I also think, if you think from a Trammell Crow perspective, I think we have a really good opportunity of really showing our partners and even our tenants data-backed facts of why they should be in our building, right? What are the, not just amenities and saying, okay, we have all this, but actually knowing that the data and what people are interested in, and really moving the needle towards that. And so I think all that's continuing to get just even better and better. So I probably said a lot, but these are all things top of mind that we're thinking about every day, of how do we increase, visibility, productivity, everything for both internal and external.
Do you see, where do you come out as it relates to I'm not going to, maybe argument is the word that comes to mind, but I'm just going to use it, the elimination of humans in this equation, because a lot of things that you cite give back a lot of time. And if you don't have some place to put that time in terms of putting the resource to the time, do you fall on the spectrum of, hey, it is probably going to disrupt labor, or it's not, we're just going to reimagine our work?
Yeah, so this is another interesting topic because we're all talking about it.
Yeah.
And I saw I wish I remember the name of the person who quoted it, but of course it's going to disrupt some, right? So there are going to be some roles that will go automated, and that happens all through history. And so
It
I
does.
tell people all the time that you need to constantly upskill. And if you are upskilling, then you will always have a job. You will.
That's right.
And maybe you're doing something, because there's going to always be something still manual, or there's going to be something that someone has to be, I guess the term, human in the loop, right? But what's fascinating is this article that I read, which hit something I didn't even think about, is we are now going to have to be, even if you think about how you write. Okay. If you think about how we think and all these, that is going to be such an important asset, because if you think about these agents are only as good as how you write, how you strategically think. They're not just automatically thinking about all this. You have to prompt them. And so that's a skill set that I think we're underestimating. And so I encourage and I tell my own kids this: you can't bury your head in a sand, right? And think it's not coming, because it's
That's right.
coming. And even if you think there's fear, it's actually an exciting time. It's just a little bit of an unknown. So you have to be willing to jump in and really ride that wave with it and learn as much as you can and set yourself apart. If you sit back and don't do anything, then you probably will be without, it will impact you. And so I think that's kind of what I tell everybody, and that's kind of where I sit. But I loved that article, because I was like, it's so true. Like there's just common sense human skill sets that we have that we and you just need to hone into those, and it will create new opportunities. It will.
I'm 100% with you. What came to mind when you were speaking through that is that it's all about mindset. And if you can focus on the outcome that you desire, or the outcomes that are more positive in nature, instead of the work or the effort that goes along with it, and or the elimination or addition of what might come to be before that, your mind's going to figure it out. Humans are going to come together collectively and figure it out.
100%. It's even, if you think about it, we still crave. I don't know anybody that says, okay, I am okay with a robot doing 100% from start to finish everything in my life. I don't think as a race we're even ready for that.
No,
And we
no.
wouldn't, and it wouldn't even go right. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. In 50 years it will be there, but you still very much right now have to have a person to even just make sure that a lot of this automation works. There's a lot of complexity to a lot of this automation is, and even though we're seeing, I mean, it's pretty amazing. We're seeing great, I would say, outcomes. The amount of complexity our businesses have, and we're light years away from like really unlocking that. But I think, it just goes back to, I tell everybody, if you're not continually challenging yourself or really jumping in risky areas, you're not growing, right? And so it's just somewhere we all just have to be, jump in excited and have a voice and where it goes.
That's right. That's right. Well, as we come to a close here, I wanted, so RETCON is coming up. You are someone that works at the forefront. You're in it every day. My imagination tells me that there is something about this transformation or this metamorphosis that we're facing that very much excites you as an individual or somebody working in the space. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, and how a gathering like RETCON is a place where you can sort of take those ideas in and breathe them into bigger and better ideas?
Yeah. So first of all, I think anytime people can get together, like-minded people, or not even like-minded, because you really want everybody to be a little bit different. You don't want the same people in the room. Whenever you can get people together and discuss real world problems, real world experiences, we all learn. I think any of us can say we figured it out. We have not. And so personally, that's what I think a lot of these conferences do that are amazing is they bring the business, they bring, technology people, they bring service line people, all these people together to learn. So I think that's really interesting. I also think one of the most important things is we can't, especially I think over the next couple of years, it's going to be so even more important than it ever has been. It is going to be so important as companies and as the business and your functional teams, whoever it is, right? And so your technology, your accounting, your finance, are all at the table together. There is no longer that, hey, technology is technology and you sit over here and business sits over here and you're just IT. It is no longer that way. I almost feel like there's going to be this little gray line where business people are going to become technologists and technologists are going to become more business. And so you're going to have to be. And so I think that's one of the great things about RETCON is I think it helps people that probably are not technologists understand a little bit more what's coming and why it's important. But I also think it's very important for technologists to hear the business and understand, and not just understand it, but also really listen. And so it's a divergence of those two very important, simple principles, very simple, but very hard to execute at times. And so I think that's a very important reason why these conferences are, at least I personally enjoy them, because it's very much about learning, and networking is always great, but learning is really the main reason I go, just to hear what people are doing and how they're solving problems.
Yeah, and would you agree that there's just a different energy about being in person versus doing a panel online or a webinar? Not that those things aren't valuable, but
yes, you can't replace. It goes back to human connection, Mike. You cannot replace human connection. When you're on a panel or when you're listening online, you don't get to hear all the other conversations that you would have when you're in person. And sometimes those other conversations that are outside of a panel, or they're like the carry on of the conversation, is probably more important than the panel. So I think anytime you can do something in person and have that human connection, it's
definitely. So just one last question as we sort of tie up here. Is there any one thing at RETCON that you're looking forward to as a takeaway in advance of actually attending the conference?
Yeah. That's awesome question. I think the number one, it goes back to, we're all very busy, including myself. Yeah. And 2 years ago, I made a decision. I needed to start making time for internal learning. And how I learn is by listening to people and really talking about them. So for me personally, it's that camaraderie of getting to hear what other people are doing, what they're seeing in their business, and how they're solving it. So I'm more excited about that piece of it, of just really having, a couple of days where I can focus and I can really learn from others. So that's my biggest, I would say, excitement of attending.
Excellent. Well, Dusti, I absolutely appreciate you investing a little bit of time with me this afternoon. I know you are a busy, busy woman, so I'm going to let you get back to your day, but thank you very much for taking the time.
Well, thank you for having me. It was great to meet you.
You too.